Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. I hope that you're finding this experience very enlightening and illuminating, and you're making some good connections. I know that I am. Tom and I, my husband, have journeyed here from Fremont, Nebraska. We live right in the middle of the United States. If you put an X across the United States, we'd be right there in the crosshairs. And we were, in fact, in the crosshairs in 2000, personally. This is a picture of our family then. Just after this, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So you can see I had a lot to live for. I had 3 young boys, and I really wanted to see them grow up to be the kind of upstanding man that their father is. So we consulted with our local oncologist, and he suggested 6 months of chemotherapy. And that all went fine, seemed to work well, but within another year I had a second occurrence of breast cancer. So at that point we knew that this was really very, very serious. It wasn't just a little bump in the road. And so I elected to take a very extended course of intensive chemotherapy. The workup for that intensive course showed that I had hepatitis C. This was a new diagnosis for me. It was completely out of the blue. I had no risk factors whatsoever. So this just really, really knocked us off our feet, and we just could not deal with 2 life-threatening diseases at the same time. So we just said, okay, we're going to put that on the back burner and just go ahead and have this high-dose chemotherapy and then try to get past the cancer thing. If that works, then we'll think about hepatitis C. And we were so stigmatized by that diagnosis that we told nobody about it. We didn't tell our parents, our family, our children, our sisters, our brothers, no one. We didn't tell our closest friends. And in fact, I even asked my personal physician to keep my chart in his desk rather than on the chart rack, so that no one else would have access to it to see that I had hepatitis C. I regret that now with all of my heart. I regret that I allowed myself to be stigmatized, and now that I'm cancer-free for 15 years, I resolved to always give it, whenever I can, to talk about stigma and to dispel the myth of stigma and to destigmatize hepatitis C. So, fortunately, that high-dose chemotherapy seemed to work. I'm still here, and I'm grateful for it every day. Then we had the opportunity, the emotional reserve, to address hepatitis C. And as we looked into that, and as I journeyed through that course, Tom, my husband, who's a family physician, just had lots of questions about how this could have happened, what happened, how did this come about when she had no risk factors. He talked to the oncologist. We live in a small town of 20,000 people, so everybody knows each other. He talked to the oncologist about what do you think might have happened, and because at that time Tom had got so curious about hepatitis C and so interested that he started screening everyone who came across his threshold. And within a month found 4 more patients who had hepatitis C, all had a history of cancer, all elderly people who also had no risk factors. So all of these 4 people had also been treated by the oncologist. So Tom went to the oncologist and said, what do you think might have happened? The oncologist said, well, we'll see. We'll do a study and we'll use my charts as controls, and we'll see what happened in your clinic, Tom. Within a few days, he returned to his home country. He was not originally from the United States and did not ever return. The state did an investigation then, along with the CDC, and did a thorough chart evaluation and found that there were 99 people with hepatitis C who had contracted it through the oncologist clinic. What happened was his nurse reused syringes during a port flush, so she would draw blood from our ports, put that blood in lab collection vials, replaced the needle, but used that same plastic syringe to access a large saline bag. Someone came to the clinic with known hepatitis C, bringing it in to that large saline bag, and then all of us thereon contracted it from that saline bag. So that's how we became passionate about injection safety. Since I became more healthy, we decided to use my malpractice award to fund Honor Reform, Hepatitis Outbreaks National Organization for Reform. And our mission is to educate and advocate for injection safety. So we have partnered with the CDC and others, many others, to promote injection safety. And so we know that there are 4 ways of viral hepatitis transmission through unsafe injections, and we also know how important it is globally that so many new infections take place because of unsafe injections. So we're very pleased to partner with the World Hepatitis Alliance and be part of No Hep Village and work really carefully from our end, really dedicated to eliminating transmission through unsafe injections. So we're going to talk about patient-to-patient transmission, patient-to-provider transmission, provider-to-patient transmission, and by people who inject drugs. So talking about patient-to-patient transmission, in the United States, there have been 6 outbreaks investigations in 2017 and 4 investigations in 2018. So this happens in all countries. Even in my home country of the United States, there are still patient-to-patient outbreaks like mine, where there was a reuse of needles, syringes, medication vials, IV tubing, other kinds of equipment that were intended for one-time use. And the resources that are available to prevent that kind of transmission, we're very pleased to be part of the One and Only campaign hosted by the CDC and the CDC Foundation. 1 needle, 1 syringe, only 1 time. It's a very robust website. There are also about 11 state coordinators within some of the states that does this full time to educate healthcare providers and consumers. Tom and I like to do that ourselves. We really enjoy giving presentations and sharing the information of the One and Only campaign. So please check that out. There's guidance even for special populations such as the dentists, Ebola outbreak, diabetes, and so forth. So talking about patient-to-provider transmission, it's estimated that there are 35,000 needle stick injuries per year in the United States, and that results in about 1,000 new cases of hepatitis C transmission per year. So that is alone is startling how much transmission takes place from needle sticks. Even though we have some safety design, many kinds of safety designed injection systems where it's really reduces in the possibility of needle stick injuries, it still happens at an alarming rate. And so here are some, here's a very good resource for preventing those needle stick episodes in your healthcare setting. And so this has very great resources. It really has a fully designed campaign that you can bring to your healthcare facility to get everybody on board to prevent needle stick transmission of viral hepatitis. Now, speaking about provider to patient, we know that about 100,000 healthcare providers who are addicted come to work every day. So as the opioid crisis grows in the general population, it filters into the healthcare provider population just the same. It's at the same percentages. So when addicted healthcare providers come to work, and many of them have been, are infected with hepatitis C, how that happens is, and there's been several, and there's more of these kinds of outbreaks in the United States. A typical scenario is that an addicted healthcare provider, known hepatitis C, will steal a narcotic off the anesthesia cart. Let's say it's fentanyl, for example. Go into the restroom, inject himself, herself refill with saline and put it back on the anesthesia cart. Usually the anesthesia cart, all of the drugs are named, labeled, there's a log about it, so it has to be there, or there's, that sets off an alarm. If it is replaced and it looks the same, then that can happen. Just recently in the United States, a laboratory technician who was an itinerant, who was hired by a staffing agency, he'd become suspected perhaps, and then he would leave and just go down the road to the next setting. And he was in 14 different institutions, 7 different states, and because of him, transmission was tied to about 80-some people. So this is becoming a very great problem for us, addicted, hepatitis C positive healthcare providers transmitting the virus to their patients. So the One and Only campaign also has a site on their website that specifically speaks to that drug diversion situation. Again, it has prevention resources, and it really is a very good resource for you to think about it and take a look at. For people who inject drugs, this accounts for about 23% of the new hepatitis C infections in the United States. We know that from 2010 to 2016, the percentage of new hepatitis C cases in the United States tripled, and many of these are due to drug transmission by people who inject drugs. And so I commend the harmreductioncoalition.org. As I was looking through the web, I found was perhaps the most robust information about preventing and giving advice about injection safety for people who inject drugs. So please take a look at that. And I know that there's a number of exhibitors here today that also have a lot of information for harm reduction, so I applaud them. So that's our story. Thank you. That's how we got passionate about injection safety. This is a picture of our family now. So in 15 years, we've grown in stature and size and number. So because of people like you who are passionate about eliminating hepatitis C, that's why I'm here today able to share this story. So thank you very much for sharing your passion for eliminating hepatitis C.